Jainarayana Vyas University, Jodhpur. We welcome you all to the second day of 2 days international webinar on e-business and cybersecurity. With more than 300 registered participants, all from Indian Accounting Association, this and my very own Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Jainarayana Vyas University, Jodhpur, as well as the cyber world. We welcome you all to the second day for me of 2 days introduce the national webinar on e-business and cybersecurity. The Honorable Chief Guest of the day, more than 300 registered participants on artificial intelligence from Indian Accounting Association. This is my very own Faculty of Commerce from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Today, the expert addresses will be delivered by three stalwarts. As our first expert, we have the honor of President Police Medal recipient and senior cyber auditor, Dr. C.B. Sharma. He has been an outstanding Indian service officer and is a world-renowned cybersecurity expert. Secondly, we are glad to have with us an exceptional academician in the field of financial perspectives, Dr. S. Anand from Oman. He is heading a very important portfolio as Director, Postgraduate Studies and Research at College of Banking and Financial Studies at Muscat. I'm delighted to introduce you all with one of the best-in-class academicians, highly valued by students. Presently, he is a senior professor at MIT Manukau campus, New Zealand. Now, we are honored by the presence of our Honorable Dean, Professor Jasraj Bora, who is heading another key responsibility of being the chairman of Jodhpur chapter of Indian Accounting Association and a bid to pay farewell for his exceptional services to the organization. This international webinar has been materialized as a mark of respect for him. Sir, we welcome who is heading another key. We are blessed by the presence of the very responsibility of being the chairman of Jodhpur chapter Business, Finance and Economics Department, Professor Raman Kumar Dave, who is a great teacher, researcher, and has authored many books. He'll be holding the baton as Dean of the Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies very soon. Now, you all know the main motivational force behind this entire international webinar is Chief Advisor, an eminent researcher, distinguished scholar, and a great teacher, Senior Professor Krishna Avtar Goyal. I welcome him as well. Now, with the blessing of God, we'll begin our second day through the welcome address by an educationist as well as an administrator of very high repute, my head of the department, Professor Raman Kumar Dave. I now invite him for the welcome address. Professor Raman Kumar Dave. He has just messaged me that he'll be joining us soon. Professor Raman Kumar Dave, can you hear me? I also welcome head of the Department Business Administration, Professor Dr. Umed Raj Sathe. So there's some technical glitch. If Professor Raman Kumar Dave, you'll be joining us late, but I now request Professor Krishna Avtar Goyal to kindly give welcome address.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are very much audible.
Okay, thank you and welcome to one and all present on this platform. I, Professor Krishna A. Goyal, welcome you all on behalf of Dr. CBS Cyber Securities LLP Limited, Jaipur, in academic association with Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Jainarayana Vyas University, Jodhpur, and Indian Accounting Association, Jodhpur branch. Respected dignitaries and all the participants on the platform, I welcome you all, especially our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor P.C. Trivedi Saab, Chief Guest of this particular session, Honorable Professor Nischal Verma Saab, Professor Senior Professor, Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Welcome, sir. Honorable Dr. C.B. Sharma Saab, IPS and CEO, founder, Dr. CBS Cyber Securities Services Limited. Dr. C.B. Sharma Saab has been in administration and he's having a great interest in academics. I welcome you, sir. On behalf of the organizing team, I welcome all the experts of today's session, Professor E. Saini Saab. He is from School of Business, MIT, Makua campus, New Zealand. Welcome, Professor Saini Saab. You are awakening since long. I know there is 1:30 midnight in New Zealand and you are waiting for this lecture. I welcome you by heart. Thank you, Professor V. Saini. I welcome you as the another expert of today's session, Dr. S. Anand, Director, PG Studies and Research, Department of College of BFS, Muscat, Oman. Also, all the dignitaries on the dais, our Honorable Dean, Professor Jasraj Bhora Saab, Head of the Department, Professor Raman Dave sir, Vice President of this particular conference, Dr. U.R. Tated,
Thank you, Professor Krishnavtar Goyal, for your warm words as ever. See, as we all know, that in New Zealand it's 1:30 right now. I'm very thankful to Professor Soini who has spared his valuable time for us. So, at first, we'll be listening to the best in class academician in the field of e-business, Professor Vijay Saini from Auckland. He's an academician, very highly valued by students, and presently he's a senior professor at Manukau Institute of Technology, New Zealand. I welcome you, sir. We'll be doing a virtual clapping for you for your contribution in the academic field.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I will not take very long. I will try to finish as soon as I can. And I have prepared a few slides which I can share with you as well. I must thank you all for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts and understanding about COVID-19 and how New Zealand has, in a way, relatively successfully dealt with the crisis. What I will do is I will first discuss the timeline of the COVID-19 and also discuss the 4 levels, alert levels, which the government used here to deal with the crisis. And then I will touch on the impact of COVID-19 on New Zealand economy. And lastly, I will touch on the government steps, what government has done to minimize the impact on the economy. Actually, when the crisis unfolded, the timeline here, I will share my slide with you. That will make it easy for us, to deal with it. So I hope you can see the slide. Dates when different alert levels came into force. Is that the slide you see? Because I cannot see on my computer what slide you are seeing.
It's visible, sir.
Yeah. So what happened was that I distinctly remember Friday, 20th of March, my son-in-law, who is a specialist in Auckland Hospital, he told me, Dad, don't go to the institute at all because of the virus. So Friday, I remember I had a class on finance in the morning, and I left the class within 1 hour. I left the class and I came home. That was 20th of March. Now on 21st of March, New Zealand government announced that COVID-19 threat is there, and they announced 4-stage alert system. So alert system 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what they did was on 23rd of March, they said that the country will go into alert level 3 on 23rd of March. And then on 23rd of March, they declared that from midnight of 25th of March, the country will go into level 4, which was the highest alert level. And the brief rating of that level eliminate. So that was the alert level. So you can see that the government actually moved very fast, and before changing to different levels, they will always give time, say 2 days time, 3 days time, and they will say, okay, with effect from such and such date, the country will be in this level, and this is what is expected from the people. Now, for example, level 4 was lockdown, complete lockdown, except essential services. Now, before they announced lockdown, there was a lot of panic, and people started hoarding on day-to-day use products. And it was, of course, very scary atmosphere here. It's a small nation. Its population is 5 million people only. And Auckland, where I live, is about 1 million. Or maybe slightly more than 1 million. And government concentrated on strict adherence to prevention, infection prevention, and they introduced control protocols. So in the beginning, it was complete lockdown. I think New Zealand was in complete lockdown for about 5 weeks. And the next slide will give you an idea of the infection in this country. This data is from the Ministry of Health today, 28th of June, 9 a.m. in the morning. So far, there have been 22 deaths in New Zealand from the virus. Now, total number of confirmed cases and probable cases is 1,526. Recently, what has happened is for about, I think, 23 days, there was no case at all. So there was a kind of a feeling as if New Zealand has eliminated the virus. But every country went through the second wave of virus, and this happened in New Zealand also, when people were allowed to come back from overseas. So what the government did was they allowed New Zealand citizens and residents to come back to New Zealand. And when they came back, they brought virus with them, although there is a compulsory 2-week quarantine. So what the government is doing now is anyone who is coming into New Zealand, they must stay for 14 days in quarantine, and they must stay in the government is organizing hotels for them, and government is paying for it. 14 days they stay there. They test them on day 2 and they test them again on day 12, as far as I remember. So virus is quite under control right now, and there is no community transmission as such. So there are isolated cases, mainly from overseas. Actually, I think 3-4 people have come from India. They are New Zealand citizens or residents, and one from Pakistan, and I think 2 from UK. So now the next I will deal with is the economic impact of the virus. Now, briefly, what has happened is in March quarter, GDP has declined by 1.6% in just one quarter. June quarter data is not yet available. So the data which is otherwise available is from IMF. And I will quickly share IMF data with you. I will share the slide. I think, this is the slide. So IMF forecast. So what IMF is forecasting is that New Zealand's GDP will fall by 7.2%. And the estimate is that this is the largest decline in the last 160 years of GDP record. Australia is forecast to shrink by 4.5%. China is growing, but their growth is downgraded to just 1% for 2020. China came out of the virus in April, although there are isolated cases happening in Beijing there also. Now, growth in advanced economy group is projected to be negative 8% in the current year. Now, Australia and China are very significant for New Zealand economy because China is the largest trading partner. New Zealand economy relies heavily on exports to China, and Australia also. A lot of trade with Australia. Now, ongoing pandemic is denting hopes of a return to normal levels of international travel. Now, this is creating another problem for an economy like New Zealand, because New Zealand depends heavily on tourism. Tourism plays a huge role in the economy. So if international travel is not happening, just as it is not happening now, so economy is suffering. Now, it is very interesting. IMF notes that a higher level of uncertainty than normal remains around these forecasts. So these forecasts are not certain. So these are just estimates, and so they should be, taken in that light. Now, the other thing which I want to tell you about the economic impact is that the unemployment is going to rise, and the estimate is 8% will be the unemployment in this year, from 4.2% in March. And not only now, unemployment is likely to be high in the near future. So in the next 3 years, the estimate is unemployment will be 6.1% in New Zealand. So from New Zealand standards, it's pretty high, because in New Zealand, unemployment is about 3%, 3.5%, 2%. Now, consumer confidence is dented. House prices are predicted to fall by 9%. Huge portion of household wealth is tied up in houses. So if house prices fall, that will have an impact on consumer spending, and that will have impact on consumer confidence. So it's very serious if the projection is that house prices, actually some of the estimates are 10 to 12% fall in the prices. Now, if I look at the alert level, New Zealand is in alert level 1, that is the lowest alert level, with effect from 8th of June. So now what is happening is that the retail spending is on, restaurants are open, cafes are open, and the government is telling that because international tourists will not be able to come, there is a lot of uncertainty about when they will be able to come. So what the government is telling the people is to travel within the country so that motels and hotels and restaurants have businesses and they recover. Otherwise, they are in deep trouble because there are no tourists. So the government wants to start the economy somehow after the lockdown of five weeks. There was a talk of giving helicopter money to all the residents to spend. So there was a proposal, but it was not passed subsequently. Now, there has been a serious impact on the economy, particularly because of the lockdown, particularly because of tourism. And another factor is international students. Interestingly, New Zealand depends a lot on international students. And we get a lot of students from China, from India also we get students. We get students from South America. We get students from other countries, Asian countries. And that those students are on holidays, lot of them, and lot of them were new students, so they are not able to come. So now there is a lot of pressure on the government from universities and institutions that these students should be allowed to come back. Of course, students are keen to come back and continue their studies. Many universities are saying that they will keep the students for 2 weeks in quarantine. So all that is going on. Qantas chief executive, I think just yesterday, he has said that the travel is not going to start for the next 1 year. These are all guesses. I mean, it is nobody is sure, what will happen tomorrow. But the guess is that the travel is not likely to resume. Earlier, there was a talk that New Zealand and Australia can open a travel between. So Australians can come to New Zealand, New Zealanders can go to Australia. And there was a talk of opening travel with Pacific islands like Fiji and Cook Islands and Samoa and Tonga and all these islands. There was a talk so that, the tourism starts. So government is keen, but they are not sure, especially after this second wave of infection. So government is becoming more cautious in Australia as well as in New Zealand. Now, lastly, I will try to discuss briefly what the government has done to minimize the impact on the economy. Because the government is afraid that if economy suffers, then it will create huge problem. So in the beginning, nobody talked about the economy. But as people settled and as people analyzing it more, so they started worrying more about the economy. Now I will share another slide that I have with you. Factors in minimizing the effect of this. So I think, this is the slide. New Zealand is a unicameral government in the sense there is a central government. There is a huge trust in institutions and control of outbreak. Population density is a significant factor. Density of population is very low. So that is a positive factor in controlling the virus. New Zealand is an island nation and it is physical isolation is helping. Otherwise, earlier there was a talk that New Zealand is far away from any other country, but this is proving to be a blessing now. Government response has overall been very good, very fast and effective. Communication has been very good. And of course, people have cooperated with the government. Now, to protect the business, government has started a number of projects. Government has about $60 billion package to spend on making sure that the economy doesn't suffer for a very long time. So what they have done is they have made arrangements for business finance. Businesses can borrow money from the banks. 80% of the bank is 80% of the loan is guaranteed by the government, and the bank's risk is only 20%. And usually 20% banks insist on equity in the loan. So banks are secure. So what government wants is that small businesses should survive and they should be able to get over this crisis. And so 60 billion they are going to spend on this helicopter money. Talk was there, but later on it didn't go through. Then government had a wage subsidy. That was an interesting scheme. Wage subsidy for about 12 weeks. So employers who can prove that their businesses have suffered because of the crisis, so government gave them salaries equal to 12 weeks so that they can pay the employees, even if employees were not working. So some employees were working from home, online they could work. So even if they were not working, government gave money to the employers for 12 weeks. Of course, there is a transparency regarding the money, and the government can find out whether the money has been properly spent or not. So lot of checks and balances are there. And this wage subsidy has been extended in case still employers feel that their revenue is down, 40% down as compared to the comparative period. Then there is a scheme for giving salaries up to 1st of September. So wage subsidy, so that employees are not thrown out of the jobs. And there are steps to sustain retail consumer spending as well. Now, lastly, I would like to touch on the last thing on education sector. So what happened was when the country went into level 4 around 25th of March, the classes went online. Auckland University particularly, even in March, end of March, they declared that there will be no on-site classes till July. So somehow they could foresee that this is not going to stop very soon. So to ensure the students that their education will not suffer, so the classes went online. And so like when we were teaching online, initially I started with Zoom, but then I started using Teams because our institute has software license. Government distributed computer devices to low-income schools so that those people don't suffer, or they don't have broadband, or they don't have computers. As I told you, New Zealand is heavily dependent on international students. It's a $5 billion industry, as big as the wine industry. So there is a lot of pressure on the government right now to allow international students to come back. Who is putting the pressure? Universities, of course. Universities, institutes, even schools, because schools get a lot of revenue from international students. So let us see when this will happen. And so overall, New Zealand is rated as a success story. Government was quick. People cooperated when they said lockdown, so people listened to the lockdown. Essential services kept on. Supply chain was managed properly, so there were no shortages of essential goods. Although, in the beginning people stored. So my wife said, we are not going to store. I said, at least store rice and dal and spices. And she said, okay, we will keep supply for about 1 month, 1.5 months. but many people stored lot of. So even if people had a tendency to hoard, government was able to ensure that there was enough food. So essential services were all right, hospitals were all right, shops were open. Of course, social distancing was there. So luckily now New Zealand is in level 1. We are still teaching from home. So even the test is, so I had a test last week. So test we could put on online. Of course, teaching online has its own challenges. I can see most of you, but in my class, especially when the class is in the morning, and the girls, students particularly, they switch off their video camera because they said they are not prepared. So when I speak, I am speaking to the computer. I said it's very frustrating. I don't see any one of you, and it seems I'm talking to the computer. So there are challenges in teaching online, but in future, online teaching will be there. It is not going to go away because there is pressure on parking, there is pressure on classrooms. In universities also, parking is very less, and it's very expensive. So students will be happy if they can study from home. So online classes are going to stay. Many companies are closing their expensive offices in the central business district, and they are saying that people can work from home. Let them work from home, and they are moving to the suburbs to cheaper offices. So this is what I had to say. I'm so grateful to you for listening patiently. It is so nice, to interact with friends and see them. And that is the wonder of the technology. So internet is not all bad. So we are able to, interact. Otherwise, coming and meeting person. There is no substitute, to meeting personally at conferences. But this is the second best option. Thank you so much. I hope I have not taken more time.
Thank you, Professor Saini. Thanks a lot. You have delivered a extensive lecture and you introduced us with the economy of New Zealand. It was like a live presentation or a live session. You have shown the whole scenery of New Zealand. Thank you. I know you have limitations and you are about to sleep.
Thank you. It's it's nearly 1:10. So thank you so much. But I hope to see you soon on my next visit to India. I'll try to catch up with you.